Okay, today let's solve multi-step equations. So we just got done solving addition and subtraction equations that needed one step, and we got done solving multiplication and division problems that need one step. Now we're going to put them together. Okay, there are multiple ways to solve these. So I don't like telling students that you can't do it that way. It's just that sometimes there's an easier way than some other ways. Okay. This problem, I'm going to show you two different ways you can solve it, and then I'll let you decide for yourself, and I'll kind of give you some suggestion of which one's easier. Okay. The first way I'm going to do it is I'm going to get rid of the multiplication. Okay, because sometimes you get stuck in your head, order of operations, well, multiplication needs to go first. Okay, well, it's not always the case when we're solving an equation, but in this case, we can do it. Okay, you have to remember that if you multiply or divide something, you have to do it to every single term in the equation. Okay, so this time, since I have 4 multiplied by g, I need to divide everything by g. So I have to divide this, the -2, and the 4 by 3. And I'm going to put this here just to make sure that I know where my equal sign is. Okay? So now 4 divided by 4 cancels, leaves a g. -2 over 4 is -1/2 or -1/2 equals -6 over 4. Those both reduce to 3 over 2 negative. Okay, and now I can add to both sides. Okay, so I have a -1/2, so I need to get rid of that by adding its additive inverse. And since I did it on the left-hand side, I also have to do it on the right-hand side. And what does that leave me with? Well, -1/2 plus 1/2 is 0, so it leaves me with a g on the left-hand side. And then -3/2 plus 1/2. Okay, -3 plus 1 is -2 halves, which is -1. So g equals -1 is our solution. Okay, now let's look at another method of doing that. So let's call this method 1. Okay, come over here, we can do method 2. Okay, so we have 4g minus 2 equals -6. Okay, last time I started by dividing everything by 4. Okay, and the big mistake people make on the first thing is to say, well, I divided the 4g by 4, so I just have to go to the other side of the equal sign and divide the -6 by 4. Okay, when in reality we need to divide every term by that number. Okay. So sometimes this first method causes a bunch of confusion. Okay. Now, if we ignore our instincts with order of operations, or actually look at them kind of backwards, the easiest thing to do operations-wise is to add or subtract. So let's look at doing the easiest thing. Okay, we have a -2 here, so let's do its its additive inverse and add 2 to both sides. Okay, I have 4g still. -2 plus 2 is 0, so I don't need to write anything in there. Okay, and then I have -6 plus 2, which is -4. And if you notice already, my one step, after my first step in my second method, I have all whole numbers, or integer numbers. So I have a 4g and a -4. After my first step in method 1, I had rational numbers, or fractions. So now I need to get rid of the 4. Well, that's the same as the first step I did before. So I need to divide both sides by 4. Divide every term by 4. Okay. 4's cancel. G equals -4 over 4 is -1. It actually saved me a little bit of time doing that. Okay. So my suggestion would be to try to get rid of the easiest thing each time. It's not always addition or subtraction. As you'll see in a future problem here, in one of our next problems coming up. but I would try to get rid of the easiest thing. When you have to divide every term, that might not be the easiest thing. Plus, it might end up giving you a bunch of fractions that you don't want. Okay? So let's look at another problem. Three halves A minus 8 equals 11. Okay? Now, what would I call the easiest thing to get rid of? Well, in this case, again, addition and subtraction. So we have a minus 8, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Now, notice that we're always making decisions based on the variable side. And we don't want to go over and say, well, I've got a plus 11, I need to subtract 11 from both sides. That's just going to bring more over to the variable side, you can think of it that way, or it's going to get rid of the 11 on the right-hand side and give us a 0, which may or may not help us. Okay, so we want to get rid of things that are on the side of the variable to get the variable by itself. That's our goal. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side, the negative 8 plus 8 is 0, so we're left with 3 halves A equals 11 plus 8, 19. Okay, and now we don't like to divide by fractions because that adds a step for us, but we're going to multiply by the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal of 3 halves, which is 2/3. And we'll do that to both sides. And over here we might have to put the 19 over a 1 to call it a fraction. Okay? 2's cancel, 3's cancel, leaves me with an A equals, okay, 19 times 2, well, that's 1 short of 20 times 2, which is 40. So 1 times 2 is 2. Subtracted from 40 is 38. Okay, you guys probably knew that one in your head anyway. 1 times 3 is 3. 38 thirds. Okay, that one doesn't reduce. You can change that into a mixed fraction if you want. Let's see, 3 goes into 38 what? 12 times, and there's a remainder of 2, so 12 and 2/3 would be that one. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, here's an example of one where the addition and subtraction might not be the easiest thing to get rid of the first time. Okay? This negative 2 in the denominator really kind of screws us up. Remember when we have a fraction bar, the same thing holds true with, or when we did order of operations and we had a fraction bar in there, we had to divide the b by -2 and divide the 4 by -2. So it's kind of like distributing a division. Okay? So if that's the case, then let's just get rid of that -2. Okay, the operation that the -2 is doing is dividing. So let's do the opposite of that and multiply both sides by 2. Just squeeze it in there. Over here, and if we wanted to, we could call it -2. So let's actually do that, because -2 times the first side, or the left-hand side, the -2's cancel now, because one's in the numerator, this one, and one's in the denominator. So it cancels. Leaves us with b plus 4 over 1, which is b plus 4, equals negative times a negative on the right-hand side leaves us with a 34. 2 times 17. And now we have one simple step left, and that is to subtract 4 from both sides to get rid of the plus 4. So b is 30. Okay, let's look at one more, because we can put the variable. Let's see one that looks a little bit different. It has a variable on the right-hand side. Okay, so this one's a variable on the right-hand side. So it's just going to look a little bit different. Still should be able to solve it by going through logical steps in our head. Okay. Okay, what is the easiest thing to get rid of on the side that has our variable? Okay. Well, to me, it would be the plus 3. Okay. Addition and subtraction are always easier, or almost always easier than multiplication or division. The case where they're not is the last case we just looked at. Okay, so in this case we had a plus 3, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. 18 minus 3 is 15 equals, we have a 5p plus, well, 3 minus 3 is 0, so just 5p. Okay, and now to get rid of the coefficient on the p, which is 5, so we need to divide by 5 on both sides. This coefficient is a number multiplied by a variable. Okay, that's the number that leads the variable there, and it's 5 times p, so we divide by 5 to cancel those and leave us with a p equals 15 divided by 5 is 3. Okay, and that's an acceptable way to write your answer because it is true both directions. 3 is equal to p, which means p must be equal to 3.